Good morning, honorable speakers of Senate and Parliament, honorable ministers, distinguished guests, excellencies, your honors, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the solemn hearing as part of the commemoration of the 20th anniversary of the adoption of the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. This morning we will start with the solemn hearing, and we are extremely honored that the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has accepted the court's invitation to be our guest of honor. After the solemn hearing is finished, we will continue the program of the day in the conference cluster of the court for the high-level symposium, and in the afternoon followed by the panel discussions. For now, I wish you a pleasant hearing, and thank you very much.
All rise. Excellences, Président de la République fédérale du Nigeria, Président de l'Assemblée des États partis, juges de la Cour et d'autres cours ici présents, Madame le procureur, Monsieur le greffier, honorables intervenants et membres des corps législatifs nationaux, honorables ministres, Monsieur le secrétaire général adjoint chargé des affaires juridiques des Nations Unies, honorables gouverneurs des subdivisions politiques des nationaux, membres des corps diplomatiques, le président du conseil de direction de fonds au profit des victimes, mesdames et messieurs, bienvenue. Et à nos invités, je vous souhaite la bienvenue à la Cour pénale internationale, votre cour. Je le fais au nom de tous les fonctionnaires et du personnel de la Cour. Il y a 20 ans aujourd'hui, le 17 juillet 1998, des membres de la communauté diplomatique et de la société civile et des juristes du monde entier se sont réunis à Rome pour réaliser une vision à la fois grande et importante pour le monde entier. C'est une vision d'un monde dans lequel les atrocités qui choquent la conscience de l'humanité ne seraient plus commises en toute impunité contre les victimes. Cette vision, à l'époque, était de créer cette Cour pénale internationale en tant qu'institution permanente capable de peser lourd sur la conscience de ceux qui seraient enclins à commettre de tels crimes et même de les contraindre à répondre de leur comportement, quel que soit le rang. Le fait que nous soyons réunis aujourd'hui dans les locaux permanents de cette Cour permanente est le témoignage de plus éloquent de la concrétisation même de cette structure internationale où de telles questions de responsabilité peuvent effectivement être posées avec une réelle rigueur et vigueur. Yet, for many reasons, we are not entitled to celebrate achievement of vision, and I do stress the point. But time permits me now to touch on just two reasons why, very briefly. First, as a practical matter, we are not really free to take credit for an achievement that was not truly our own. For we are not, generally speaking, the generation of diplomats, civil society, and jurists that worked so hard for so long to realize the dream of adoption of the Rome Statute in July 1998. Those visionaries of 1998 have played their monumental part and have left the field for us. And they have left to our own generation this most important legacy that we call the Rome Statute today. We honor them deeply and fully. But in 20 years, the reflection will turn on questions about what we did in our own turn with that mantle that they handed to us. Did we drop it? Did we leave it unimproved due to indifference and apathy? Or did we make it better? But we cannot afford to wait for the next generation to answer those questions for us. In 20 years' time, our reflections as part of this 20th anniversary must concentrate on those questions. And that brings me to the second of the many reasons that stand against any celebration today. And that is to consider that the very vices which this court was created to address persist in many parts of our world as we speak. And many may find it alarming that some statistics may even suggest the prospect of deterioration, judging by the comparative global incidence of armed conflicts. For instance, statistics analyzed and reported by the Heidelberg Institute of International Conflict Research suggest that the number of high-intensity conflicts has more than tripled in the last 20 years since 1998, when the Rome Statute was adopted. Such statistics must truly trouble us, given the notorious phenomenon that armed conflicts are the most common vectors of atrocity crimes, typically those that come in the manner of ethnocentric mass violence, sexual violence, and war crimes. Yet, while those statistics would inhibit the celebration of achievement or vision, they should not also induce in us a depressing sense of fatalism in our struggle against impunity. Quite the contrary, let them serve as an urgent clarion call to the following reality: that humanity's need for the Rome Statute and the ICC is as critical today as was the case 20 years ago, indeed more so. That clarion call, thus, urges us to the necessity to hitch our resolve to the sticking point and double down on our courage and tenacity to battle the forces of impunity regardless of their origins. The necessary battlefront requires in us a determination to give this court the political, diplomatic, functional, and material support it needs in order to do its work. It urges us to increase our drive for universal ratification of the Rome Statute in order to cover the global terrain of jurisdiction for the court. And it encourages us to accept that as a human institution, like every other human institution, including national courts of even many hundreds of years, there will always be an ongoing need to reform the court and its processes in order to improve its ability to achieve its mandate with greater purpose and efficiency, yet leaving undiluted the essential properties that make this court a vital instrument of accountability. And just as importantly, the temptations of apathy and indifference towards the court must be resisted at all costs, for there may be unwitting allies of impunity implicated as such in Edmund Burke's famous dictum, which holds, quote, "All that is necessary for evil to prevail is for good men and women too, to do nothing," unquote. We should also be alive to the possibility that the erosion of the court's purpose may come in the guise of the illusion of supposed reasonable alternatives that take the approach of return to ad hocism, even when it is possible to use the court for the administration of justice as it was created to do. But that illusion may only be just that, a veritable siren song that lulls the mind of good faith away from the urgent need to support and shore up the hard-won permanent court into which the world has invested so much capital, be it political, diplomatic, civic, let alone the obvious one, financial. Indeed, sliding back to ad hoc solutions is a development that detracts from the declarations of many delegates in Rome 20 years ago, to the effect that the ICC was being established as a better method in comparison to the ad hoc experiments that were the only solutions possible in their own times, from Nuremberg to the former Yugoslavia to Rwanda and to Sierra Leone. Given then the total absence of a permanent international criminal court in place to administer international criminal justice at the time. 20 years later, it is not ideal to return to that solution without first exhausting truly the possibility of employing the permanent international criminal court specifically created to administer international criminal justice. I do feel confident that those of us who now enjoy the privilege of serving the cause of humanity through the instrumentality of this court are fully committed to the project outlined above, be it as leaders of national governments, as ministers, as members of the diplomatic corps, as members of civil society, and as jurists working at the court or in academia. With those welcoming remarks, we kick off in earnest our various reflections on what the Rome Statute and the ICC mean to humanity. We shall hear next the keynote address by our guest of honor, President Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Following his keynote speech, we shall hear reflections from the President of the Assembly of States Parties and also reflections from the prosecutor of the court. After this opening segment, we shall reconvene in the high-level segment where we shall continue to hear the reflections of the other delegates. May I now invite His Excellency President Buhari for the keynote speech. Excellency, the floor is yours.
The President of the International Criminal Court, First Vice President of the International Criminal Court, Second Vice President of the International Criminal Court, judges of the International Criminal Court, the Chief Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am honored to be with you here today to celebrate the anniversary of this vital global institution. I say vital because the world needs the International Criminal Court. Let me start by congratulating you, Judge Chief Ebony Osuji, on your election as President of the International Criminal Court, and also thank the judges of the court for electing you a cherished son of Nigeria. Nigeria is very proud of you, Mr. President. Let me also express my gratitude to the International Criminal Court for inviting me to speak on this occasion. As we know, the International Criminal Court was established 20 years ago as a global court inspired by the Nuremberg trials of World War II criminals to hold people accountable for crimes against humanity, war crimes, crimes of genocide, and aggression. In addition to preventing impunity, promoting adherence and respect for the rule of law and fundamental freedoms worldwide, and to punishing those in leadership positions responsible for the most appalling crimes and atrocities, the International Criminal Court has given hope for justice to so many by demanding strict adherence to the rules of international humanitarian law. With the alarming proliferation of the most serious crimes around the world, the International Criminal Court and all that it stands for is now needed more than ever in ways that were unforeseeable to its founders. The International Criminal Court may have been created at a time of optimism that it will not need to be utilized frequently, but unfortunately, the increase in international crimes has only increased the court's relevance. Indeed, while limits on the International Criminal Court jurisdiction mean that it cannot presently act with regard to some of the dire crises of the day in the states that are not parties, by acting where it can, the International Criminal Court reinforces the demand for justice far beyond its own cases. A strong and effective International Criminal Court has the potential to send a powerful message about the international community's commitment to accountability, a message that will be heard by both victims and perpetrators. Equally, a strong and effective International Criminal Court demonstrates the international community's commitment to the rule of law. A strong and effective International Criminal Court can also act as a catalyst for other justice efforts, expanding the reach of accountability. These could include serious cases of corruption by state actors that severely compromise the development efforts of countries and throw students into greater poverty. These could also include cases of illicit financial flows where countries are complicit, and abstract repatriation of stolen assets. As African Union champion on anti-corruption, these are issues dear to my heart. The Rome Statute created more than a court. It created the outline for a system of justice for horrific crimes rooted first in national courts doing their job, and where they fail to do so, the International Criminal Court stepping in only as the court of the last resort. The International Criminal Court also needs increased cooperation and financial resources from its member states. State parties should express their commitment to increasing efforts in these areas, including pledging concrete assistance. The 20 years of the court's existence have witnessed several challenges, some of which had threatened the very existence of the court itself. Most notable were the withdrawals and threats of withdrawals of membership of the court by some states, as well as accusations of bias in the exercise of the jurisdiction of the court. Thankfully, the court has addressed these challenges in a dignified and commendable way. Nonetheless, the court needs to take on board all constructive criticisms and allay lingering fears and concern through targeted messaging, awareness raising, and possible modification of some legal provisions. If properly articulated, communication and awareness raising would surely engender trust and encourage greater cooperation of member states with the court, and even encourage non-member states to decide to become members. It must avoid even a hint of bias or political motivations. The goals and the responsibilities of the court are no doubt very challenging and daunting, but with the cooperation of all, coupled with the high caliber of judges and staff of the court, the challenges are not insurmountable. I therefore urge all states not to politicize the decisions of the court, but to always bear in mind the rationale for the establishment of the court in the first place. I urge all states that have not yet done so to, as a matter of deliberate state policy, accede to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court so that it can become a universal treaty. Nigeria has cooperated with and supported the court at all times. This we have demonstrated by our full and transparent cooperation on matters on which we are being investigated, and also in our several country statements at the sessions of the court. Our cooperation with the court is born out of our strong belief in the respect for the rule of law and human rights, and in our firm commitment to the sanctity of fundamental freedoms at international and domestic levels, as ingrained in the objectives for establishing the court. In conclusion, let me intimate to you that Nigeria is preparing to conduct general elections next year. Contrary to the tragic incidents that characterized the 2011 general elections in Nigeria, which necessitated preliminary investigation by the International Criminal Court, I assure you that all hands are on deck to prevent any recurrence of such tragic incidents. We shall do everything possible to ensure that Nigeria witnesses the conduct of free, fair, and feasible elections in 2019. Again, I congratulate the court on its 20th anniversary and wish it continued growth, relevance, and success in the years to come in its vital role as a bulwark against man's inhumanity to men. Thank you for your attention.
Colleagues here on the bench. Mr. President, on behalf of my colleagues here on the bench and the whole court and its well-wishers, we are immensely honored and delighted for your attendance of this event as our guest of honor, showing actionable leadership in the manner of support that the court needs in these interesting times that you spoke about. Thank you very much for the keynote address. Now I will invite the President of the Assembly of States Party, His Excellency. I've been informed that I'm getting ahead of my time, myself. First, there will be something else. Pardon me. And then the ASP President will speak after that. Thank you very much.
Now hear a performance by 4 members of the Chilean-Dutch ensemble Amancay: Winanda van Vliet, Renato Freigang, Alvaro Pinto, and Patricio Wang. They will perform without interruption 2 songs of Violeta Parra, arranged by composer Patricio Wang.
Good morning. We are very happy and honored to be present at this ceremony. We would like to sing 2 songs by Violeta Parra, who was not only a major artist in Chile, but also a big fighter for justice and culture.
Mi pecho se halla de luto por la muerte del amor. En los jardines cultivan las flores de la traición. Oro, cobre, el hortelano que va sembrando rencor, por eso llorando estoy. El niño me causa espanto, ya no es aquel querubín. Ayer jugaba la ronda, hoy juega con un fusil. No hay ninguna diferencia entre niño y alguacil. palomito por la barranca.
Thank you very much. That hit the right note. And on that note, may I now invite the President of the Assembly of States Parties, His Excellency Ogunpon, for his reflections.
President of the Court, Your Excellency, President of Nigeria, Honorable Judges, Madam Prosecutor, Mr. Registrar, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to be here representing the Assembly of States Parties to commemorate, together with you, a significant event. I would like to express my deepest thanks to all the participants who traveled long distances to The Hague to participate in and share this important 20th anniversary of the adoption of the Rome Statute to the International Criminal Court. In particular, I thank the President of Nigeria for honoring us with his presence and showing his leadership in support of the International Criminal Court. 20 years ago today, in a dramatic vote in the early hours of the morning at the Rome Conference, states overwhelmingly adopted the statute of the ICC. This vote proved to be an historical breakthrough, reflecting a collective determination to put an end to impunity for the most serious crimes of concern to the international community. The International Criminal Court has since become, with crucial support of states parties and civil societies, a fully fledged and leading international institution in the fight against impunity. 20 years later, the court is now an integral part of the international system, and its work contributes to the development of the rule of law, the promotion of human rights, and to a more peaceful and secure world. Today, the court stands as a permanent beacon of light and symbol of hope for the victims of such horrific crimes. The Rome Statute did not only create the first permanent international criminal court, it also established a complex yet innovative system of international criminal justice with complementarity and cooperation at its core. Much has been achieved since that momentous occasion in 1998, but there are still many obstacles and challenges in the road ahead. With no police force to execute its arrest warrants or other judicial orders, the court must rely on governments for arrests and to assemble necessary evidence and witnesses. Cooperation is therefore indispensable if this court is to fulfill its mandate. In this regard, the recent challenges surrounding non-cooperation negatively affect the court's ability to do its job, and also its credibility as a result. The principle of complementarity is the bedrock of the system, and thus the primary responsibility for addressing Rome Statute crimes rests with national jurisdiction. However, only half of the 123 states parties have adopted the national implementing legislation necessary to ensure they have the capacity to investigate and prosecute these crimes at the domestic level and to cooperate with the court effectively. Bearing this in mind, I find the recent withdrawals from the
from the statute most unfortunate, notwithstanding this principle of complementarity. Such development generates regional segmentation and send the wrong signal to the international community. With more than 2/3 of the world's nations having signed, ratified, or acceded to the Rome Statute, there is a clear movement towards universality. However, many states remain out of the court's reach. On the one hand, major global and regional powers, including 3 of the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, have not yet ratified the Rome Statute, and some regions of the world are still largely underrepresented, including Asia-Pacific region, the Commonwealth of Independent States, and the Middle East and North Africa. In addition, the court remains bound by its treaty limitations and therefore is unable to address every international crime committed in the world. Unfortunately, this has generated negative perception of selective justice and double standards, making the court vulnerable to attacks. Delivering international criminal justice swiftly, fairly, and with quality is not a job the court can do on its own. The Assembly of States Parties has a very important role to play in this regard, and the court requires not only its continued strong political and diplomatic support, but also concrete and swift action. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, there are serious challenges ahead, but we must not lose our optimism or faith in the process. At this important juncture in its history, the court needs our support more than ever. I wish to use this occasion to reassure the court as a whole that it can count on the continued support of states parties. We remain united and steadfast in our common struggle in the fight against impunity. I'm certain that the Rome Statute is as necessary as today as it was 20 years ago. And I believe it is important to go back to the basics with a renewed dedication, commitment, and also excitement, just as we did when we first adopted the Rome Statute. Let today serve as a time to reflect, look back, appreciate what we have accomplished, and most importantly, revive our commitment to the fight against impunity. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, President Kwon, for that important call upon all of us to go back to basics. And may I now invite the prosecutor of the court, Madam Bensouda, for her own reflections. Madam Prosecutor.
Your Excellency, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Your Excellency, the President of the Assembly of States Parties, Your Excellency, the President of the International Criminal Court, honorable speakers, honorable ministers, honorable judges, Your Excellencies, Your Excellency, the representative of the United Nations Secretary General, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted and honored to address you at this solemn hearing in commemoration of the 20th anniversary of the adoption of the Rome Statute, the founding treaty of the International Criminal Court. Before going any further, I would like to thank you all for your presence. In particular, I want to thank His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, for your presence and for your support to the court. Physics teaches us that the forward thrust of an object, and the faster it moves through time and space, the greater the resistance it encounters. It is the same principle that generates waves as a ship increases speed through turbulent waters. Whereas the adoption of the Rome Statute with the establishment of the International Criminal Court was in and of itself a new tidal force that changed the status quo of the world for the better, 2 decades after the Rome Conference, the system of international criminal justice created by the Rome Statute continues to make significant waves towards building a culture of accountability for atrocity crimes. The statute has set the course, and the ICC is moving ahead with dedication and determination. The support and encouragement of its many proponents and the plight of victims of atrocity crimes are the driving force which propel it forward. Whilst not bereft of challenges, its work in practice is increasingly shaping norms, casting a deterrent shadow across the globe. Our commemorative activities today and in different capitals offer a unique opportunity to pay homage to the Rome Statute and to reflect on our responsibilities, our methods, and means at our disposal to ensure the enduring value of this important international legal instrument to humanity. We are all crew members with the same mission and determination in mind, albeit with different functions, and we need all hands on deck to face the challenges inherent in the fight against impunity for the world's gravest crimes. We must consider our respective but reinforcing roles with commitment, with resolve and resourcefulness, and with only one goal in mind: seeking the truth and ensuring that justice is effectively done and that it is seen to be done. The court will do its part by forging ahead with its core mandated activities with independence and utmost integrity on the strength of the efforts of its devoted staff, by continuously assessing and, as needed, improving its working methods, policies, and strategies, and by advancing the efficiency of its criminal proceedings in accordance with the highest standards of judicial administration and full respect for due process guarantees, and ultimately ensuring that the victims of atrocity crimes have their day in court. This, it may be clear, is not an easy task, given the complex environments in which the court operates, with strict legal criteria and thresholds, large-scale criminality and insecurity on the ground, changing political climates with dwindling resource capacity and varying degrees of cooperation, and, overall, ever-increasing demands for the court's intervention. As it undertakes the mandate, the court must be allowed the proper space to focus on its duties, free from unwarranted resistance. Attacks on the court to undermine its important work or in the service of Machiavellian schemes to shield the culpable must continue to be met with the determined and unequivocal voices of support from principled state parties and civil society who stand without reserve or distinction by international criminal justice. Indeed, we are on this journey together. Each of us here today has a responsibility to ensure we don't disappoint the victims embroiled in devastating conflicts all over the world, past or present, who have been looking with hope at the ICC's establishment and evolution. Hope that the cold calculus of international politics does not abandon them, or worse, undermine humanity's shared values and common yearning for peace, stability, and the protective embrace of the law from the world's gravest crimes. Your Excellency, Your Excellencies, dear friends and colleagues, The velocity of changes has been fixed towards a more enlightened path for humanity. The Rome Statute is a critical instrument of that progressive change in the modern era. As we commemorate the 20th anniversary of the adoption of the Rome Statute, we owe it to ourselves, our children, and future generations to fully support and nurture the ever-evolving international criminal justice system and the ICC as its central pillar. A more rule-based global order where mass atrocities are checked through the force of the law and the progress of humanity demand it. Today is yet another opportunity to recommit to the Rome Statute and in so doing, declare the era of mass atrocities as merely continuation of politics by other means, that it's over. We must be unwavering in our resolve to create a world that seeks justice for atrocity crimes, universally applied and blindly applied. Let the Rome Statute continue to guide us towards that better future for all. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Madam Prosecutor, for your very inspiring speech containing those very apt imageries about from the law of physics and movement of ships in turbulent waters. So indeed it is for the ICC in turbulent times. Before we conclude the opening session, it is fitting for us to recall that on the eve of the adoption of the Rome Statute in 1998, President Nelson Mandela reminded the world that there had been enough horrors that human beings had visited unto their fellows. He observed that many of those horrors could have been avoided or at least minimized if there had been an effective functioning international criminal court. No doubt, the brand of horrors of which he spoke would readily include atrocities like the Holocaust, like the genocide against Tutsis in Rwanda, ethnic cleansing in the former Yugoslavia, and indeed apartheid as a crime against humanity committed in South Africa. And we must not forget the incidence of sexual violence that is a notorious feature of armed conflicts. We now have in place that ICC that Mandela had wished for. I invite all of us, as all the speakers who have spoken have done, to use this occasion of reflections to return to the basic vision of what the world sought to achieve in building this normative and physical edifice of accountability. Let us ensure that allegations of the most serious crimes are met with a robust, fair, and impartial judicial response at the international level as a last resort, where national systems prove unable or unwilling to give victims their day in court. Let us make sure that we do not let down those who worked so hard to make the Statute of the International Criminal Court a reality. Though adopted 20 years ago, the dream that culminated in that event started over 50 years before. In our own turn, then, we may even permit ourselves to dream to improve the edifice in other ways that make the world a better place for humanity. Listening to the speech of His Excellency, the President of Nigeria, as the champion of anti-corruption desires from the African continent, I cannot help but recall on a recent visit I had to Ecuador, His Excellency President Lenin Moreno and his officials enthused also the dream of an ICC that should also prosecute cases of grand corruption executed at a scale the effects of which are capable of approximating the human costs of violent crimes against humanity. Now, I merely report that wish that he registered with an open mind. The decision, of course, to amend the Rome Statute to allow that manner of jurisdiction to the ICC belongs to states. If given that jurisdiction, my colleagues and I would readily exercise it. Je clôture maintenant cette séance avec la fervente demande que nous assurions tous ensemble que l'esprit de Rome perdure de façon à ce que les responsables des crimes qui choquent la conscience de l'humanité ne restent pas impunis au vu de toutes les affreuses conséquences qu'ils ont pour être humains. Thank you all very much. The session is now adjourned.
All rise.